My name is Millie Garcia-Serrano, Assistant Commissioner for the Bureau of Wayside Cleanup, and I'd like to welcome you to Bureau of Wayside Cleanup's Wayside Cleanup Advisory Committee meeting, which is taking place, I believe, for the first time since COVID times, here at MassDEP's offices, located at 100 Cambridge Street in Boston, Mass. Today, I am joined by our advisory committee members, MassDEP staff, special guests, and the public, who some are attending either virtually or in person. We really want to thank you. And for those that are attending in person, we have a sign-in sheet at the top of the table as you come in, so kindly please register yourself so we can make sure that you continue to receive notices regarding our meetings. The Wayside Cleanup Advisory Committee meets quarterly and serves as a forum where MassDEP seeks to inform and seek comments and input on matters that affect our programs, statute, regulations, guidance, policies, or any initiatives that we're working on. If you're new to this forum, welcome. Next slide, please. We have a really packed agenda today, so we will work expeditiously to ensure that we cover. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Thank you. So we're going to work expeditiously to ensure that we cover all of the topics, and some of the topics selected by members of our advisory committee, and also internally and externally. So we are appreciative of your interest and input to the topics that we're talking today. As you can see, we will be providing you some administrative updates, federal programs, policies, ER and MOSPRA, NRD. You will also be watching a demo on the Wayside Cleanup Public Data Portal. The LSP board is going to give us some updates, as well as the LSPA. ORS is going to provide us with three main topics of discussion today involving dioxin TEF process, the PFAS signature in private septic systems, risk characterization guidance, if anything, the status of all of the various chapters and sections that we're working on right now. A PFAS update, which is a topic that is evolving, as you all know. And then we really would like for the Wayside Cleanup Advisory Committee members and anybody else who's interested in opining to provide us with some input regarding the path forward that we'd like to move forward with regarding engineer barriers and financial assurance mechanisms. We're going to tee it off today. And then final wrap up, any lingering questions and answers. And in my estimation, the most important piece of today's agenda, which is an appreciation award, no surprise, Larry Feldman and Miss Wendy Runzel. Okay, so on to administrative updates. So before I report on the state budget process, I'd like to share what we know about the proposed state funding levels. And so I'm going to go back to 2024. Thanks to Governor Healy and the legislature, MassDEP has been able to address our program needs during FY25. Recall that our final budget for FY25 had to do with monies across the board for the state, and the final budget was $57.8 billion. With those, a part of that being for MassDEP, which was allocated $87 million. That's what was assigned for MassDEP last year. So for FY26, the budget proposals currently in play right now is gone through the governor's House 1, the House final, and now Senate initially. That's starting in play right now. And these proposals, as we're watching them, they hover around $85 million mark for MassDEP. So we will continue to keep an eye out on funding for MassDEP. Okay, let's also continue to monitor these allocations. Obviously, we will be informing you as soon as the final budget is signed off, and I'm sure there'll be press releases and otherwise regarding the status of the funding for all of the state agencies. So on the budget side, as basically just to provide a little bit of context, and as you know, January 2025, the governor files the proposal. In April 2025, the House debated and completed their version. Then that version gets navigated over to the Senate, and 2 days ago, they started working on the debate, and then they finalized their versions. The version then goes directly to House and Senate. They start reconciling in June. And those two versions, again, get reconciled, and the final reconciled version goes to the governor's office for review, sign-off, and execution. So we'll be keeping an eye out again on how we land financially and otherwise regarding our operating budgets and otherwise for 2026. So some of you all may have seen in the news that hiring freeze was actually reported on by the press, and we also, MassDEP, received, and all of the actual executive department agencies received a memo from the Administration and Finance Office notifying that, again, all executive department agencies, there was a hiring freeze that would take place starting on May 27th, 2025. As in the past instances when this step has actually been taken, A&F characterized the freeze as a proactive step being taken by the Healy-Driscoll administration to manage spending as the state prepares for the new start of the fiscal year. The reality of the federal funding cuts, tariffs, increased inflation, and spending pressures have really caused a great deal of uncertainty for the fiscal year 2026. And for this reason, the hiring freeze is a tool that must be utilized and has been already, been identified as in effect starting 27 May to prepare for these uncertain economic times. And again, broadly and more across the board, protect the taxpayers and ensure that funding continues for the essential services and the programs for the people and families residing in Massachusetts. My takeaway, at least, and this is merely editorializing, the silver lining is that the hiring freeze will be reevaluated, as it has in the past, once a final FY26 General Appropriations Act is in place, and the process of developing the spending plans are actually underway. So we are keeping close watch. Our commissioner has been fearless, trying to ensure that communication is flowing up and down and across, and basically just is a monitoring situation, which all the agencies are right now. And so any future administrative and finance information, we will be passing that information along as well. Staffing changes. So despite the hiring freeze news, we do have some great BWSC staffing changes that I'd like to report on. And I don't know, Anita, if some of these individuals are in the actual virtual room, so I don't know if there's a way, a mechanism for people to see their faces, but if anything, we can just kind of keep going. We have a new Deputy Regional Director and interim PR chief, Andrew Clark. He's following this position with the advent of Steve Johnson's retirement. So Andrew has worked for MassDEP since 2006, alternating between the emergency response and brownfields program, from management of vapor intrusion, imminent hazard cases, to tanker truck rollovers, to fast vehicle support and the chemical explosions at industrial facilities. Andrew has done it all. For brownfields, he actually worked on the Union Square and Stanley Road site in Somerville, and the Encore Casino site in Everett. And since 2021, he has been the ER section chief for the Northeast region. He's also worked in the private sector, so he has that context to the importance of work by the privatized companies out there just working on cleanup. So we're delighted to have Andrew now serving as DRD for Northeast region. Andy Jones is Ciro's new ER section chief following Dan Crafton's retirement. Andy began his career with MassDEP Emergency Response in 1999. Over the course of his career, Andy has responded to hundreds of marine oil spills, and with the majority of them being on or around New Bedford Harbor. In 2010, Andy served as the state scene coordinator for the ESS Pursuit sulfur mustard incident in New Bedford, where a commercial clamming vessel actually dredged up and returned to port with a World War I chemical munition, leading to a massive response by the local, state, and federal officials. Andy continues to assist with the implementation of MassDEP's Clean Bilge program. He also serves as the Commonwealth's trustee representative on the New Bedford Harbor Trustee Council. In addition, he enjoys fishing, shell fishing in the waters of Buster's Bay. He's volunteered on numerous municipal boards, so congratulations, Andy. And last but not least, Derek Bruce is Western Region's new ER section chief. Derek has been with MassDEP since 2006, starting in BWSC Emergency Response Section, and later joining in the Bureau of Air and Waste Compliance and Enforcement Section in 2015. performing multimedia inspections of facilities subject to hazardous waste, air quality, USD, Chora, all those classic programs under that BAW works on. In 2020, Derek took on the additional role as hazardous waste coordinator, and while at BAW, Derek maintained a very strong relationship with the ER group, providing support through the ER call line. Prior to joining MassDEP, Derek spent summers working at DCR as a park interpreter. We're also fortunate to have David Slowick, who will soon be retiring from MassDEP after many, many, many years of service in the Western region. So we are delighted that David agreed to stay on until the end of the fiscal year so that we can effectively onboard Derek. So congratulations to all of them.
Recording in progress.
Finally, we have the advisory committee membership. As you know, our Bureau's work could not happen without the insight and support of its 10 advisory committee members. Later today, we'll be honoring Larry Feldman, a long-standing member. So we just want to say thank you so much, Larry. That will be coming for us to honor you. And right now, we're just basically looking for anybody who's interested in participating, serving as another advisory board member. So we let you know, send me an email if you're interested. This is under the 2020 consultants sector slot. So we will happily await your expression of interest memo, email, and get you onboarded. And I look forward to a year of more robust conversation with the advisory committee members so they can actually advise and give us their input and help shape our program from 2025 on. So I appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and I thank you profusely. Finally, I just want to let you know that the New England Environmental Business Council recently announced that MassDEP is one of other project partners selected as the winners of this year's EBC Apex Award in the Brownfields category for Brownfields Remediation Project of the Year. On June 4th, 2025, EBC will be presenting the James D.P. Farrell Award to the project team responsible for the cleanup and development of the City Pier, the Senator Thomas Norton City Pier site in Fall River, Massachusetts. The recipients include the Fall River's Mayor Paul Coogan, as well as Governor Healy, Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, legislators, consultants, federal, state, municipal regulators that work very hard to see this project come to fruition. There were many, many programs involved, including asbestos, Chapter 91, hazardous waste, wetlands, water quality certifications, etc., because it's on the water marina and basically just revitalization of a very underutilized parcel. So we are delighted to be there. I want to say special recognition to the Southeast region under Gerard Martin's leadership. I'm currently serving as regional director, and just a special connection for me since I left the post at the time that this came to fruition, so maybe that's a good idea. But anyway, just thank you, New England Environmental Business Council, for this honor, and our commissioner will also be joining me. So with that, let's see, David, so this, here we go.
I think that's that.
Ready? Any questions in the meantime, reaction, while we get the presentation back and running?
I have a question, Lily. Is the process for providing, expressing an interest in that open seat just an email to you, or how does that work?
Yeah. So it would be an email to me, and actually, as always, LSPA collaborates with MassDEP, and we're grateful for that. Maybe having an email or something, some kind of notice in your LSPA newsletters. So we'll certainly coordinate with you, and now Ms. Morris, looking forward to also working with the LSPA new executive director So, most definitely, thank you. So stay tuned, we'll get this presentation up and running for those in the virtual room.
The mouse pad is not currently accepting.
Old school.
Yeah. My tongue.
You can see it on the screen here.
Oh, that.
It's not showing the screen.
Right, where are we? Next. Program things next.
So I'd like to introduce Ms. Diane, thank you, much appreciated. I'd like to introduce Ms. Diane Baxter to the podium. She's the Division Director for the Federal Grants Program, where she will be providing you more information regarding what we've been up to in the federal world. Thank you, Diane.
Thanks, Melanie. Hopefully I can get this slides to advance. Okay, I'm here to provide federal grants program updates. There are several programs within the federal grants division. I'm going to just touch on these three. Let's see if we can hear some of them hidden. Okay, first is the Federal Sites Program, under which the state provides oversight of federal response actions or response actions at federal sites that are regulated under CERCLA. These include currently 31 sort of standard NPL sites, more than a dozen military installations, and 10 formerly used defense sites. These sites are at various stages of the CERCLA process, from initial investigations through remedy selection, remedy implementation, and long-term monitoring. The recent highlights I'm going to show you in the next few slides are centered around remediation. We're excited that remediation is beginning at a few sites, or 2 sites beginning this year and continuing at a 3rd site. And we had some sort of surprise removal actions needed at a 4th site. Okay, so the first one is the Walton and Lawnsbury Superfund site in Attleboro, which was a former chrome plating facility. Remedial actions got underway, or construction got underway in March. The main contaminant here, and the risk drivers, are hexavalent chromium in soil, groundwater, and surface water. And they're implementing in situ treatment by zero-valent iron injections and reactive barriers. The second site where remedial actions are beginning this year is Creason Cook in Danvers, which was a former tannery facility. This site spans the Crane River, so it's on both the east and west sides. And so the first, the remedy involves excavation of arsenic contaminated soils and placement in a landfill containment cell that's being built on one side of the site. And in order to avoid trucking the excavated soil over small residential roads that surround the site, the first step in the construction is to build a bridge over the river along the line of a former railroad trestle that was dilapidated. So that's what these photos are showing. And just a couple more photos. There's a historic cemetery located on the site near where the containment cell is going, so that has to be protected during the remedial action. The Nuclear Metals Superfund site in Concord has a variety of contaminants. This remediation has has been going on for a couple of years now, and these pictures depict part of the remediation that is going to depleted uranium contaminated soils in a former holding basin. This was a significant threat, or principal threat waste, so highly contaminated soil that's being treated through in situ sequestration, again with zero valent iron, and there'll be a containment wall and cover over the entire cell after that ISS process completes. And then the last of our action, I guess, is at the Industriplex Superfund site in Woburn, which the main remedial actions have been completed for many years, but there was recently redevelopment on one of the buildings on the site, and they found hundreds of drums underneath a concrete floor. So that removal action has been taking place to take care of those drums. That's it for the federal sites wrap up. You've probably seen a variation of this figure before. This is just a reminder that we have brownfields roundtables happening again this year. The first one actually was just this week on Tuesday in Billerica. And there'll be 2 more in June, on the 3rd in Worcester and the 18th in Taunton. And then after the summer on September 4th, and the next one will be in Greenfield. So our Brownfields group coordinates with the regional planning councils and to EPA, as well as the other entities listed here, to organize these sites, these meetings, to provide information and resources to stakeholders and allow connection of the various stakeholders. If you have any questions on individual brownfield sites, your regional brownfields coordinators are the best people to contact. If you have questions about any more general issues or these roundtables, David Foss in Austin is the one to contact. There are just a few photos from past roundtables. And then the last thing I wanted to just touch on was our contained in determination petition process. MassDEP has a policy that provides for use of MCP S1 soil standards to make a determination that soils containing RCRA listed waste doesn't have to be handled as hazardous waste, providing that it meets the criteria outlined in the policy. So the LSPs are responsible for preparing these petitions, and the petition is submitted via a standard BWSC form through EDP. There's a 21-day presumptive approval process that starts on the date of receipt by MassDEP. So far, last year there were 10 petitions filed, and we've had 9 petitions so far this year. I'm not sure if that's a trend yet. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But if you want more information on this process, there's 2 ways. Rose Knox is, out of our Boston office, is the person who handles these determinations. So she's a contact. But she and someone from our hazardous waste group in the Bureau of Air and Waste, Jim Patterson, prepared a training, I think it was in 2022, that I believe is still available on demand at the LSP's training modules. So you can look that up. And this is just a screenshot of the policy with the website where you can find it. And that is all I have. Thanks. I guess Ken is up next, Ken Nara.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Mara from the Policy and Program Development Group in Boston. Thanks for coming. By way of policy updates, there's no shortage of policies. This is a partial list. This doesn't even include things like monitor natural attenuation and asbestos in soil and some of the other from the old hit parade. But the biggest news is that since we last met, the AUL guidance document, thanks to all of your help, and especially for from Peggy Shaw's shop, that she carried it over the finish line, and it has been posted as a final document in April. So that's a big one. That was many years in the making, and it's a very big document. Next up, the ones that are on the front burner right now, you're going to hear more about the risk characterization guidance that Greg Braun's going to be talking about, so I won't get into that here. And then you'll also hear more about engineered barriers and financial assurance mechanisms. That's been refreshed and reinvigorated because of the interest in FAMs. And Brian Roden will be talking more about that. The public involvement, the PIP guidance fact sheets and guidance document is being updated with the help of the subcontractor. The MCP amendments, Q&As, there's still one final installment on that we hope to post sooner than later. And then the PFAS stuff, we have the PFAS Q&A that's sitting with the Commissioner's office right now. And we have an interim sampling guide that John Ziegler's going to be preparing over the next short while. And the PFAS CAM is almost ready to be posted right now. COM25 soils, you guys always ask about that. That is also sitting with the Commissioner's office right now, ready for us to release it as a public comment draft. So that could happen anytime, we just don't know when. Other things that are on the burners, but not as hot as the next up, but the ones in progress. The master Q&A is woefully out of date. If you've looked at it lately, it's more than 10 years old, and that needs to be revised. That's a major lift. It's broken up by sub part of the MCP. It's a big piece of work. And now that AUL's is over, Peggy Shaw is going to be handling the master Q&A. There's always updates to the compendium of analytical methods. That's going to be continuing. VPH, GPH, John Fitzgerald's policy, VPH, GPH, and off-gas treatment. Those two are coming back. Their VPH, GPH is being revised, and the off-gas treatment is being finalized. Also, the USD closure assessment manual is also very close to being finalized. And as always, we're always updating EDP forms and short forms. And then finally, on this list anyway, vapor intrusion has hit the radar again because of the updates to TCE. And like I said, what's not on this list are some of the favorite topics like monitor natural attenuation, asbestos in soil, maybe even an LMAP will update one of these days. But there's a lot here. There's more here than we could possibly do this calendar year. But like I said, the next up category are things that we hope to get off our plates this year. So I'll take questions. I know there's a lot of information. If anyone has anything else to ask. Yeah.
And with the update on the arsenic toxicity be under the risk characterization?
Yeah.
Or is that, okay.
Yeah, I think you can ask Greg when he speaks later on today too. Yeah, Joe.
So a lot here. I guess do you envision the typical public comment review process for these kind of documents?
I'm sorry.
The typical public review process for providing a draft, putting out for public comment, considering comments.
Yeah, the risk characterization is in piecemeal, so you guys have already seen some pieces of it, and you'll be getting more pieces of it. The engineered barriers is probably not, that went out for public comment in 2002, and that's been extensively vetted and revised, and there's no more public comment needed on that one. Most of the rest of them have, you guys on the next up have already seen most of these. The big public comment one is COM25, and that you guys will get in a full-blown presentation, and I'm sure that will draw a lot of comments. Like I said, some of these have been our old dogs. They've been in the system for years that you've already seen before. It's just a matter of pushing them over the finish line. But yeah, the big ones that are new, certainly will be public comment and input.
Yes, and if in addition to that, I think some of them are
basically since the onset of the new MCP 2024, March 1st, reg changes, some of the provisions have now shifted over. So you'll see like the PV1, it's like 0.0096, now it's 0.0098. So we need to do that cleanup in addition to maybe anything that has to do with resiliency. So, but to support here Ken, I think we will be able to navigate and extract some of these from the in-progress line to the finished line and predicated on the amount of public comments. Maybe we can just do an excerpt of the things that are changing instead of having the whole thing. And we can always keep it, any kind of comments that come back, we can always address, maybe post and maybe have some product sheets. But our goal is to basically just get these documents finalized and then start working on the material and content.
If you had any other questions, you can always reach me on my email. If you have anything right now, I'm happy to answer where I can. Otherwise, we'll move on. We're frozen again. Not moving.
So I believe that Kathy's virtual.
Oh, okay. Oh, virtual.
Yes, virtual. The voice from above. Hi, everybody. Kathy Kiley. You could go to the next slide, please. I've included my contact information here. Just going to be reporting out on the emergency response program, some of the work we're doing, as well as the MASPA program. As Millie indicated, there's been a lot of ER staff changes, but I think the main takeaway message here is that we also have the new people that are in the position are experienced, and that's the main thing I hope that you're taking away from this. And Andrew is going to continue in the ER chief in the interim until a new ER chief can be hired. And my understanding, and I believe Millie's understanding is as well, is that there are some positions, even though there's a hiring freeze, that are able to be put forward. And the ER section chief would be one of those positions that would still be able to be hired. At least that's our hope, that'll be the case. So again, that'll maintain that continuity then with having good experienced staff in those positions. We are continuing the AFFF Take-Back program. As you know, we started it for the legacy program, and we've extended that to the modern foams as well that have PFAS. And as you can see, we've collected over 420,000 pounds, 49,000 gallons of foam. We've been able to assist 166 fire departments and facilities, and 75 of those are in EJ communities. And we continue to do that sort of as requested now. We get a lot of contacts directly from the fire departments, and that's been very effective. As you know, our ER folks, 24/7, they're the staff that are able to respond to any release of oil or hazardous material. Just for the numbers, some statistics. To date, 951 releases, 939 complaints. And for reference from last year, it's a little over 1,000 for both. So I'd say we're on track with about the same numbers. Could you go to the next slide? Thank you. So here are just a couple of depictions of sort of the trends that we're seeing. On the left side, you have the notifications by region and category. And the blue is the 2-hour, the red is the 72, and the gray is 120 day. And as expected, the 2-hour is the greatest number that we're seeing. Northeast continues to have the greatest number of those releases as well. The complaints, you can see, again, broken down by region and the amount that we're seeing per region. And again, those complaints can be, sometimes they're waste site cleanup issues, sometimes they're wetland issues or odor or noise. So we get all those complaints come into us, and then they can be referred to another program. Continuing with some of the trends, again, focusing on the location and type of releases that we're getting, notifications that we're getting on the left screen, left-hand side, excuse me, and you'll see that the majority, again, the blue is a 2-hour, the red is a 72, and the gray is a 120. And the majority of those are the 2-hour releases are from roadways and commercial entities. And sort of as expected. And on the right, you can see those roadway releases, how they're broken down by region. And Central, Southeast, and Western all have about the same number, just under 40 for releases. And Northeast has a little under, maybe about 75, I think, at this point. But those numbers are coming down from, except for, I think that's Western, coming down from last year. Next slide. So the other program is the Marine Oil Spill Prevention and Response Program. I encourage you all to take a look at the website. That really presents a lot of good information about what the program includes, a lot more than what I'm going to talk about today. Mentions the grant program, which most likely wouldn't be happening now for the next round until most likely the fall. There's also information on the geographic response strategies, the oil spill trailers, the climate resiliency project, also the various navigational aids and ports, which is the physical oceanographic real-time system, and that's the meteorological data stations, current meters, wave buoys, those things that are also very important for all marine navigation, and that information is there as well. We have some systems in Cape Cod Bay, Buzzards Bay, and Narragansett Bay. So I encourage you all to take a look at that. I don't know what happened to the slides. Are you folks still seeing the slides? Online, we're not seeing anything now except for David Leon's screen.
See the slides.
Yeah,
Now we're
only seeing you at home here, I think.
yeah.
Did we lose Boston?
I think we
lost the room. Oops.
Okay.
We're
Yeah.
back.
Oh, there they are.
Oh, there we are.
Okay.
Great. Great. Thank you.
Zoom.
Great. So again, I encourage you all to take a look at that website. It really has a lot more information. One thing I did want to mention, we do work very closely with our the Coast Guard, and we participate in a number of area committees. One, the Plymouth-Salisbury Area Committee with Sector Boston, and the other is Rhode Island and Southeastern Mass Area Committee with Sector Southeast New England. And most recently, in just a couple of weeks ago, the Plymouth-Salisbury Area Committee held a seminar for the South Shore communities, and this was an opportunity for MassDEP, Coast Guard, and NOAA to present an overview of all the tools and resources that each agency can bring, essentially, to help municipalities for preparing or responding to oil spills in their community. And it was fairly well attended, not as well as the North Shore, but hopefully we'll be able to work with the sector Southeast New England and have something similar back for the Southeast New England Area Committee sometime in the next year. Next slide, please. So many of you are familiar with the coastal geographic response strategies that the program does. Now, it's not technically part of MASPRA, but we also, our ER folks are also working with EPA on the inland geographic response strategy exercises. EPA has developed, in consultation with the local communities, GRS for the inland waterways, and they've done a number of the rivers, and then they've started to test exercises now, or test strategies on the various rivers Last year was Blackstone River, for example. This year, there's going to be an exercise on the Merrimack River. It's going to be a 2-day exercise in Massachusetts. And 1 day is focusing on a GRS in the Lowell area. And on the second and on the third, it's going to be focusing on the Chelmsford, Tingsboro area. And EPA also is continuing the exercises on the 4th and 5th with the New Hampshire stretch of the Merrimack River. Then, of course, we are, the MassDEP program, as you know, does a lot of work with the first responder training and GRS testing exercises. And the next slide. Here's a list of the locations and dates and communities where the exercises are planned in 2025. 10 are planned for the year, 5 of them in the spring and 5 in the fall. We've completed 4 of them so far. The next one is coming up on June 9th in just a couple of weeks. And that's all I had for a quick update. Happy to take any questions if folks have any. All right, thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hang on,
Apologies. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Craddock. I'm the Natural Resource Damages Program Coordinator at MassDEP, and I'm just going to give a very quick kind of
use the right.
I'm just going to give a quick kind of update on what the NRD program's been up to over the past couple months, basically just a highlight reel. So in terms of settlements, we have one kind of impending new settlement associated with the SPAC landfill Scrivon site in Attleboro in Norton. We had a consent decree that included a cash out settlement for $2.1 million. Filed in court in January, then went up for a public comment period, 30-day public comment period, and we're just waiting for it to be kind of finalized with the court by the Department of Justice, so we're hopeful that will happen any day now. That cash out settlement of $2.1 million will be used towards implementing ecological restoration projects to benefit the natural resources that were injured there, so likely projects benefit wetlands, surface water, things like that. We've been working a lot on kind of restoration planning, restoration implementation. We had kind of 2 relatively recent settlements over the past couple of years, one associated with the Gloucester manufactured gas plant site where we received a $5.3 million cash out settlement, and another associated with the Ocean King fuel spill in Falmouth. We had public meetings in late fall and had a formal project solicitation over the fall and winter period, and we're currently evaluating those projects to determine which ones we want to fund. The Gloucester case, we received over 40 project ideas, so that's really exciting. So working with our federal partners to kind of figure out which ones have the best nexus to the resources that were injured there. We also currently have over 10 active NRD grants that are going towards design and permitting of restoration projects, so we're looking forward to pushing those forward, and then there'll be additional grants in the future to go towards actual construction of those projects. They're located across the state. And then finally, we are working actively on a project at Curban Park in the city of Pittsfield. This is associated with the GE Housatonic settlement many years ago. We have spent the vast majority of funds there, but we have this one project that's been kind of hanging on that we're finally going to be pushing towards construction, hopefully this fall, and that is to restore 10 acres of floodplain habitat in the park, as well as about 2.5 acres of freshwater wetland. And you can see in the picture here, kind of looks like a cool forest, but it's actually the floodplain there is completely covered in invasive buckthorn. So a lot of the restoration there will be involving removal and treatment of the buckthorn and planting of of native species there, as well as removing some historic fill from the wetlands. So that's all I wanted to highlight. Happy to answer any questions or talk more after the meeting if people are interested.
Is this Brian Rhodes' cue?
This is Sharon Smith,
Nope, not this.
but we could be Brian's group. If you wanted us, Brian.
Good morning, everyone.
Welcome, everyone, on this very rainy Thursday. You know, I'm a mindset person. I think of it as an adventure. We have a rainy nor'easter at the end of May on one of the busiest travel days of the year. So first of all, before I go any further, kudos to Millie for doing this in person. And thank you for the adventure, because people pay good money for this kind of adventure and you all get it for free today. So thank you, Millie. Okay, so I'm gonna do some introductions on who we are, what we do. Matt is gonna give us a very quick demo of our data portal, and then the fun part where we get to solicit feedback from all of you. I saw some smiles. Okay, so who we are. First of all, I'm Shannon Smith. I'm the director of the Enterprise Information Office. We're not actually part of Brian's team, although he is a huge help to us. We've also got Cedrin. I believe she's virtual today. Cedrin, I cannot see you. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm wrong, virtual.
Cedrin's our Deputy Director of the Enterprise Information Office. You may have seen her in the last meeting. I think she was here for our last meeting. And we've got Matt Cogliano from the BWSC Information Technology Group. And a fun fact is that Matt is the human behind the LSP email responses you get from EDEP. So there is a human behind the machine. So what is the Enterprise Information Office? Are you all familiar? Who's familiar with EIO? A couple of people and a couple of people are like, I have no idea what this is. We're basically the technology. We support technology for DEP, for the programs and for the bureaus. We help support that. So if you think of anything from helping support get the machines that people need and the phones people need, all the way to software licenses, to the applications, to the mass.gov DEP websites and the forms that are on the websites, we support all of that. We help all of the programs do all of those things. So we have a GIS team, and I heard some mention of it through here, some of the mapping tools that the GIS team builds. That's part of the EIO office. We have a data analytics team, and this is Cedrin's team. They have been building these amazing data visualizations. If you're all familiar with Power BI, no. Oh, some people are familiar with it, okay. Her team has been able to create really great efficiency and visualization into our data. They've been able to help reduce many manual steps. If you think of automated reporting, right? So we're really happy with the work that's been going on there. And you're starting to see some of it on our data portal. And Matt's going to do that in just a minute. And another big part, actually our online tools. Can't forget about our online tools. We're going to talk about those in a minute. That's where you all get to chime in and help us out here, give us some feedback. But we also, a big part of what EIO does is we are the bridge. We are the bridge between the business side of DEP and the development side. So we help, I her to be, like my time's up. We help the programs work with the development team to get what they want, how they want it, in a way that's useful. That's probably one of the biggest things that we do, is we're that bridge between those two teams. So with that, we've done some work on the data portal. We've done a little bit of tweaking on the data portal. And remember I said it's an adventure. So Matt is going to try and give us a demo of the data portal now. Are you ready, Matt?
He tells me I have to come up there.
You have to do it up here?
Yeah.
Unless, Matt, you want me to share the screen, you can do it here.
That's fine too.
All right.
Okay.
Remember, it's an adventure. I have to, while we're doing all this, we have to thank the people who are doing the technology here behind the scenes. This is the first hybrid meeting in many, many years. And we've had a little bumps along the way, but it's actually gone really, really smoothly if you think about all the things that could go wrong here today.
Oh, okay.
You gotta put it in perspective. That's right, it's all about mindset.
Oh, it's a presentation.
Oh, okay. While he's doing that, I will show. I'm ready with my notebook for when we, so you can be thinking about this. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna be asking, we're gonna be soliciting feedback from all of you around some of the public tools that you've been using. So while he's doing this demo, you can be thinking about it, but I've got my notebook ready with me. Like, I wanna hear your feedback, I wanna take your notes. I wanna take notes on what you have to share with us. Who here uses our data portal? Almost every hand is up. That's great. Excellent.
Not just one?
Just more.
That's it.
Well,
That's not it.
that's the slide. We have a slide that talks about some things for the data portal, but it's not the actual data portal.
Yeah, just use the mouse. Do you want us to use that? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's not on the screen.
Right, this one's there. See, that's how I think it shows up. Presentation now. You show in five.
Well, you know what we could do? Maybe Matt, you could talk to what you were gonna demo, something. You could talk to Matt. Okay, let's do that. Let's pivot and let Matt just talk to the changes rather than pull them off. If that works.
Great. Sorry, no pretty pictures. So the additions we did over the last year, Sedgwick was a great push to fixing regulatory status. It may have not been super obvious, but suddenly many of our sites were listing as REO when they're in tier 1. So it got a little confusing at one point, and we had a fix. It was taking 12 hours. And the programmers, they're so wonderful. They came up with a way, and it does it now every night. It refreshes status in 5 minutes. So it's great, because that's very efficient. It's nice to know whether the site's open or closed, basically. And the other thing we added, when you go to the map, so if you list on, find all the sites in Acton, it gives you a list, and you can click to see a map. Now what will tell you, it's only showing you 180 located sites out of 200. So we find that a little bit more useful because we're still trying to get more and more geographic coordinates, but we don't have them all. So it's nice if people don't blindly believe that they're seeing all the sites on the map. And also many of the sites are address matched. So it's an imperfect collection we have. Some of them are collected via the submittals, but it's a mix. So the other thing we've been doing is we have a new zip code search, kind of a subtle, useful tool. Now you can zero in on a neighborhood and see just those sites in that specific area. So that actually, and that's for all of our towns, so that has more utility. We now have a chemical search. So on a very basic level, you can type in PFAS. You can see all the PFAS sites. And right now we're working on adding more. We have some chemicals that still need to be added. So we'll actually have a bigger list over the next couple months. And we have another subtle fix where if you put in a search, a filter, and say you want to see all the sites in Acton, then you go back and you say, oh, I want to see all the sites in Acton that are on Main Street. So you just go back, and Acton's still there, and you just add Main. So you can kind of go back and forth to refine your search. And basically we find that to be more efficient, though you have to remember to hit the clear button. Otherwise you're stuck with the old search sometimes too. But those are some of the fixes we've added. I think I'm all set. Okay.
So I want to call out the update, the fix to the refresh time, how quickly it's getting updated, because that was phenomenal work, right? The improvement there, and I just want to thank Cedrin again for her work with that. But to get that to a 2-minute refresh time from hours and hours, so that was really exciting. Okay, thank you, Matt, for that. Sorry about the live demo part not working.
Are you back on the demo?
I'm not, I need to be back on that.
Install tab O2, I think.
Matt, if it's helpful, I think I can share.
I think we got it.
You want to do that? I think I do have permission to share. Do you want to try? I think should be.
I think we got it.
Yeah, the only problem is the audience won't see it if you share.
I think we're good.
My show's fine. All done.
Okay, well, you know, I said it was an adventure, it continues to be an adventure. So now it's where you all get to participate and give us some feedback, so I'm hoping you are willing to share with us. First of all, I do want to say that as we go through this, we're looking for some initial thoughts from all of you. What's working well? What are you getting frustrated by? We really want to hear that. But I also don't want to mislead you. I don't want to say, hey, this is going to be fixed next week or in the next month. We don't know that yet. Right now, we're really just trying to gather some initial information from everyone. Help us with our planning, that kind of thing. So don't take this as a promise to do this work. Take this as a, we want to hear from you. Okay, so because we just talked about the data portal, let's start there. What feedback do you have for us around the data portal? What works for you? What is frustrating? What does it not do? I want to hear the good, bad, the ugly.
Yeah, I also want to add additional comments from what Shannon mentioned. What more data would you like to see in data portal? So far, you can search by town and all these things. Any other data elements, we can write it down. We can certainly, if it's available, certainly try to implement any other data you'd like to see in data portal.
So Cedrin has just asked, if you couldn't hear her, any other data that you might like to see in the data portal that you're not seeing there right now. So, Michelle, what?
Sure. Someone's got to start, right? So your first question, can you find the data you need? I would say usually, but that's been the frustration for me. Sometimes I know there is a site that I'm looking for. I know it's a site, but I have to figure out how DEP has characterized, or maybe not characterized, that's not the right word, but identified this site in the system for me to find it. So for example, I may know the site is at, I don't know, 35 Main Street, Newton. That's probably not even an address, but if I type that in, it doesn't necessarily pop up. And I'm frustrated by that because I know that's the location. But then I have to perhaps go to just Main Street, Newton, and scroll through loads and loads of RTNs that I know is not my location to find what I'm looking for. for. Sometimes even more broadly than that, go to, you know, what Matt described as the community, the name of the city or town, which is even more frustrating, obviously, because I'm going through even more archons to find my site. So I'm sure that's challenging for MassDEP in many ways too, to know how to identify a site, because many sites have multiple locations, right? It's, you know, 35 to 37 Main Street, for example, or it's, you know, a corner of two streets. And I guess it'd be helpful to know how that identification is first made. I'm assuming it's from the release notification, but I don't know. So perhaps we could clarify that for us, and then we can maybe, I don't know, not that I'm trying to engage in a brainstorming session here, but think about how to make it easier to find known disposal sites, but we're just not using the right way or
But
language.
you do notice that you can search, if you type in Main Street and Acton, you can search on the street, then it'll at least order them by street. So it'll go from 1 to 1,000.
Yeah,
And,
yes.
if you don't put in street, the sort does not work very well right now, but, yeah, you're right. But that's how it's reported. Yeah, sometimes when people do report to us and say, could you change it, we do change it, but that's how it's reported to us, the address.
I just wanted to repeat, Matt, I just wanted to give a chance to repeat what she was asking because they can't, not everybody can hear us. So I think what I heard was it's hard to search for a site. You have the street address, but you try and enter the street address and you're not finding that site, that location. Is that what I'm?
Yes, that it's not immediately coming up, even though that is the actual street address for the site. You have to go back and find it in a more broad way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah, I would
other?
always tend to look just by street and not go by street number, yeah.
Matt is recommending you go by street and not street number, but we hear that feedback. You're wanting to put in a street address, and you're not actually getting it. I'm gonna hand you the mic.
Oh, sure. I have like 3 questions. So I guess piggybacking on that, when you do search for a full city or town, and then you go to sort by address, it sorts by the number, like the first digit or character in that column instead of by the street. Like ideally it would sort by the street alphabetically and then also have the numbers in order, if that makes sense. The sorting is kind of
Yeah, that's a bug we're working
a
on.
little bugged. Okay, and then with the mapping, is it still showing so that when if you again are asking for a full city, when you look at the map, is it still only showing what's on that particular page of, like if there's 4 pages of RTMs?
Right, it's only showing the first 200, so then you'd have to go to the next 200, you'll see the next map.
Is there a way to get it all?
I can't get the programmers to do it. You know, Boston would be the biggest nightmare, where it has thousands.
Yes.
And they say that the system can't handle the memory of displaying them all in one shot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's too bad, I really would prefer that too.
Yeah,
So
so we look
that's
at
a
it,
limitation, yes.
we kind of look at it both ways, I guess, like my team, when we look at the map, but I don't rely on the map entirely because I know not all the sites are mapped accurately, so then I also look at the address, but the sorting piece kind of becomes cumbersome. And then another question about the mapping is I know that online, if we were to try to download the database layer for like the shapefile with the points.
Oh,
we
from
only
GIS?
Right, from GIS, we only get the tier classified sites.
About 5,000, yeah.
Is there a way to update that layer and also, now that it's all, everything's coming up really quickly, it's being updated faster, is there a way to get a GIS layer that has all of the sites, not just tier classified?
We've been working with them to have the larger list up there, but yeah, they developed it from the beginning of time to be super accurate points, and they're very happy that that's a list of those super accurate. But we would prefer to go with even the address matches that we have and all the sites that have been reported by LSPs, to just put those out there too, because we trust the LSP reporting. So we want a broader list, and that should come in the next few months.
Oh, great, okay, I have just one more really quick one, is just the, with the LSP database, that's the other portal, we did ask, LSPA did ask for a output of the database, if possible, that has the licensing dates of the individuals, and the reason for that is we're trying to understand more about our, sort of,
how many, I know that we already know how many are active LSPs, but we're kind of curious about analytics on retirements and sort of the fluctuation in LSPs over time. And so kind of curious if I could get an output at some point that just has the licensure dates on them as well. I know that there's an export, but that's not currently in the export.
Maybe that's a conversation also with the board,
Yeah.
the LSP board.
That's a great question. Thank you for all that feedback, there's a lot of good feedback. Yes?
Just one more, the regulatory status has a lot of acronyms in it. And speaking only for myself, when I'm looking at a site that's had a few dozen RTNs, I'm most interested in what's open and what's closed. And there might be a way for me to sort that, but if there was a way when you pull up a site that has multiple, I think the RTNs come up most recent to oldest. But there isn't necessarily a correlation between most recent and open or closed. You might have had a release that's much more recent that was closed because it was a spill, and then have something buried in the middle that's open. And so the only way I know how to figure that out is to click through if it's anything other than clearly an RAO, which sometimes that column, I think you alluded, isn't super clear. But if there was a way, instead of all those regulatory statuses, there was maybe a separate drop-down menu that was as simple as open and closed, and you could sort by that, it would be, I don't know, Michelle, if you run into the same thing, but it would be hugely helpful. I don't know if it's possible.
Other feedback on the data portal? Get my exercise.
So on both Michelle's and Jeff's questions, one of the first things I do is like search on that town and then go to the map, because the map will show a different colored dot. And so you may look at a site that has 8 dots on it, but only the red dots are open and the blue are closed, and the green have an AUL where you get the color from. And that's also great. So one of the reasons addresses are wrong sometimes is that a site gets cleaned up by someone 10 years ago, and then there's some redevelopment, and they put a new property on a new building. And so the street numbers are really hard to rely on because they can change over time. But the dot is usually in the right place. So if you say, oh, I know I have a site that's the corner of X and Y street, and you look at the map, which is just at the bottom of the data portal search, that's a great way to find a local RTN, and then you can click on it and just click on the open colors.
That's a good point.
Is there any comments from the online folks? Okay. Any others before I move to our next tool? Okay, we're gonna move through these quickly, I think. The file viewer. I had some blank stares like immediately pop up when I did that. Is there feedback on this one? Okay. And the final one is the big one, BWSC. Thoughts on BWSC? Feedback on this one? Wow, I thought I'd get more on this one than the data portal. Okay, well, you know what? We're accessible. This is our contact information. You can have this and reach out to us if you have additional feedback maybe you didn't want to share today. That's okay. I know we took a bit of time, but thank you all. It was great to meet you. And I hope you have a wonderful adventure on your way home.
That's Terry Wood.
Okay, well, that's Terry. This is Terry, so I'll bring my
Morning. Hi, everyone. I'm virtual today. I'm just going to give a few short updates about what's going on at the LSP board. First, an update regarding board discipline. Right now, the board currently has 2 active disciplinary cases. The board has been working hard to finalize all of its older complaints. Of the 2 active cases, one is the last older case that dates to prior to January 2024. The other active case resulted from a complaint that was filed with the board in December of 2024. The next issue are proposed regulation amendments. The proposed amendments are going out for public comment. Public hearing for oral comments on the proposed amendments is scheduled for June 16th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. Written comments will be accepted until 5 p.m. on June 26th. A red line of the proposed amendments, a background document, and a copy of the public hearing notice are available on the board's website. Third update, the LSP board exam. The board is currently working with the psychometrician to create 4 updated versions of the LSP exam and to establish passing scores for each version. We anticipate to be able to start offering the exam again sometime this summer. We'll update the board's website when we have dates of when we plan to administer the exam. The next issue is an application review initiative. The board has formed a subcommittee to review the LSP application forms to look at ways to streamline and add clarity to them. The board staff is also working to update the board's website to make it a better experience for users and to make information easier to find on the website. The last thing is I wanted to announce that there's an open environmental slot on the LSP board. That slot is for someone who's a current member of a statewide environmental organization and who's knowledgeable about 21E issues. Information for anyone that might be interested in that opening is on the website about how to apply, or they could also certainly reach out to me for more information. And that's all I have. I'm open to any questions if anybody has any. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Joe Roman with the LSPA, current president. Just a few slides and updates today. So I would like to start with providing some updates on leadership changes at the LSPA. For those of you who don't already know, we recently welcomed a new executive director, Mary Ellen Morris of East Hampton, Massachusetts, who's with us today. Raise your hand, Mary Ellen, for those in the room.
We're in order.
Mary Ellen brings over 2 decades of experience in professional association management, a strong background in strategic planning, operational efficiency, and stakeholder engagement. During her many years at the Boston-based Public Responsibility in Medicine and Research, she successfully led initiatives in program development, both in-person and virtual platforms, alongside efforts in partnership building, membership growth, resource utilization, and volunteer engagement. We believe Mary Ellen's skill set is well aligned with the LSP's goals and will help guide the organization's continued growth and evolution. She's currently working alongside our outgoing executive director, Wendy Rundle, in a structured transition period. So thank you, Mary Ellen. Very happy to have you with us. I also want to acknowledge, thank, and congratulate Wendy Rundle, our outgoing executive director. I'm not going to steal Billy's thunder. Thank you, Wendy, for 15 years of just consistent value in your contributions to the LSPA. We wouldn't be here without you. Your imprint will live on for quite some time. And then finally, I want to identify Katie Kuzma, also here today. Katie is the current LSPA president-elect, and she'll be taking over as president July 1st. Thank you, Katie. The LSPA is very proud to continue our Environmental Justice Grant Program, which we launched in 2023 in celebration of our 30th anniversary. In its inaugural year, the program supported 5 organizations engaged in environmental and natural resource projects in environmental justice communities across Massachusetts. For 2025, we're offering a total of $5,000 in grant funding, which may be awarded to 1 or more recipients serving environmental justice populations within the county. Grant applications are due by July 1st, 2025, and awards will be announced by August 31st, 2025. Detailed information and application guidelines are available on our website at lspa.org. Looking forward, we're very pleased to announce that Millie and MassDEP Deputy Commissioner John Beeling, also here, will be featured speakers at the LSPA's September 2025 kickoff meeting on September 17th in Westboro, Mass. This is always a great event for us. We always do this as the kickoff event in the school year, as we call it. Having MassDEP there usually is a very good draw. It's a great event, so thank you again for participating. Just one more slide. Yeah, so just to close, we are currently developing our fall program. We welcome suggestions for topics, speakers, and emerging issues of interest to LSPs and other stakeholders. Please feel free to reach out to Mary Ellen Morris with any ideas at mmorris@lspa.org. And those are my updates.
It's great online.
Morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I believe so. Everyone here?
That doesn't seem to be on, Chris.
Sorry, can you hear me?
There we go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Greg Braun, in the Office of Research and Standards. This morning, I'm going to go through a few things that I've been working on the past 6 months plus. Next slide, please. So starting off with dioxin TEFs. So the end of last year, I became aware of the sort of material that we have on our DEP website for dioxin TEFs needed to be updated. So I started to sort of dig around as to the history and how we got to where we were. Just as a reminder that the TEFs are based on the toxicity of 2378 TCDD. The main sort of TEF sources that we looked at were some materials around 1998, the 2005 World Health Organization TEFs, and more recently, some World Health Organization TEFs were derived or developed in 2024, essentially, when this paper got posted. There were a couple other approaches that we looked at. So these are discussions that I had with toxicologists in ORS. And one of the things we ran into were some analytical issues. Next slide, please. So in the analytical method for dioxins, the US EPA 8290A, it quantifies 7 of these congeners that are essentially the planar dioxin compounds, which are the dioxins that appear to be the most toxic, that trigger this aryl hydrocarbon receptor sort of mechanism. But the 8290A method also reports total homologs for the 4, 5, 6, and 7 chlorinated compounds, and it's not really clear to us what that means, or it wasn't clear essentially. So we had some discussions with researchers in this field and the dioxin field about, what to do with that sort of when it's reported in these analytical reports. Next slide, please. So what we came to determine from discussions and review of what's available in the literature is that the homologs that are reported as total homologs anyways are less commonly detected, do not appear to bioaccumulate to the extent that I seem to have lost the slides. Can everyone see the slides okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And in most cases, there's insufficient data or all the cases that we were able to find anyways, insufficient data to make an assessment of their toxicity. And I believe that those homologs don't appear to trigger the aryl hydrocarbon receptor. With some more digging, we were unable to find any other agency that would clarify exactly what to do with those homologs. So we're sort of left on our own there to a certain extent. Next slide. So after discussions internally and looking through the literature and talking to these experts, we basically came to the conclusion that the 2005 TEFs from the World Health Organization are the most appropriate TEFs to use at this time. And so we wrote a memo sort of encapsulating this or summarizing this that's on the Waste Site Cleanup website, and you can also find this on the ORS chemical page, just to sort of, be clear that we'd like people to use the 2005 TEFs. We also have a statement in there that when if the analytical report does report the total homologs, that you just report them, although not include those in the TEF calculation, because they do not appear to have the same toxicity. And I should point out here that we did consider the 2022 WHO TEFs. However, our understanding is that those TEFs haven't been accepted or aren't being used currently by EPA or any other agency. And so we're sort of, holding that open as a possible future sort of adjustment as time goes on. So we'll cross that bridge when the time comes. Next slide, please. So another thing we've been trying to do, we've been hearing from regional directors and LSPs, practitioners, project managers about, PFAS and septic systems. So we are trying to compile what we can find for published literature on what PFAS are showing up in private septic systems, concurrently with other stuff like the biosolids assessment. I should point out here, these aren't all published. The fifth study here is an ongoing study, so presumably that will get published at some point, but that data is sort of interim at this point. Next slide, please. So the Cape Cod study, this many of you have probably seen this. They looked at 20 houses. There's a limited selection of PFAS that they analyzed. About half of the wells had some PFAS detection. Interestingly, they found a number of septic tracers, acesulfame and others, I think nitrate, perhaps some other pharmaceuticals associated with a number of these wells. I think a quarter of them at least had pharmaceuticals and more had the artificial sweeteners. So, and they concluded in this paper that septic systems are a likely PFAS source. Next slide, please. A study was done. This is a statewide survey across Wisconsin that looked at 400 private wells. About nearly three quarters of these had some PFAS detection, with PFOA or PFBA the most common. They conclude that discharges from septic systems were likely a major source of groundwater, but one of the problems with this data set was, well, at least that we see as, is the when they collected sort of background information, it's a very rough estimate of the proximity to the septic systems. And that data is conflated with areas that have agricultural inputs such as biosolids. So it's difficult to say this well has a septic signature. But about a third of those wells of the 450 showed some possible septic contribution or wastewater contribution, because they had some detection of the artificial sweetener acesulfame. Next slide, please. So there was a study that some of you have probably seen that New York DEC and TRC put together or published in 2024. This was a pretty thorough assessment in a community in upstate New York. They came to some of the same conclusions about septic systems being a contribution to the groundwater, and had some interesting sort of ideas, or I put forth some ideas about this notion, which I've thought about and heard from other people, but hadn't seen in the paper before, about, you know, since these PFAS compounds have been in the environment for such a long time, they are being released to the environment, reaching the groundwater, getting consumed, getting released back into septic systems and wastewater systems, and then re-released into the environment. And that cycle is essentially smearing or homogenizing the signature, which is complicating our efforts in a number of fronts, in particular the septic system question that we're talking about today, or at least right here. So this was 218 private wells. So this is probably one of the more significant or relevant studies, and it's recent. They also bring up this issue of the tracers in this paper, which is a recurring theme. Next slide, please. Okay, so earlier this year, there was a paper by Penrose et al. From Ohio, Cincinnati area, that looked at septic pump outs. Interesting that they did here, in addition to 537 for PFAS, they did a top assay of the septic. They had collected also some other wastewater data, which I'm not talking about here today, but you know, this paper sort of highlights that the signature post-top is, well, roughly 8 times the signature for total PFAS compared to the 537 methodology. So that's an interesting finding. And they detected a lot of these DIPAPs, or dialkyl perfluorophosphates, which are associated with consumer products and paper products in particular. Next slide, please. Finally, the New Hampshire study. This is a community septic system. I think there are 3 sort of tanks that capture wastewater that comes from these 24 units. For the preliminary data, they've gotten an average of PFOA of 90 nanograms per liter. And I haven't seen this, but Nihar Mohanty at ORS has been tracking this, and he tells me that the signatures that they've got from the 3 separate septic tanks is dramatically different. And I believe New Hampshire DES, who is the primary author here, I believe they're releasing some more interim data on June 12th. So we're interested to see sort of what they find or continue to find. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, as many of you, I believe, suspected for a long time, that the septic systems are a likely source of PFAS to groundwater. There's potentially significant precursors in this waste stream. The tracer compounds such as isosulfame and potentially others, NutraSweet, some pharmaceuticals may be used in some cases to make the case that there's a wastewater contribution. And we're continuing to sort of monitor the literature and think about how to handle this at sites to help us deal with these sort of complex mixed release scenarios for PFAS. And then the next slide, if you would, please. These are just the references for these papers. And then the last thing I would like to talk about briefly today is the status of the risk characterization guidance. Next slide, please. Believe me, I wish I had some more positive movement in this department. I am continuing to push this this effort. It's a long and winding road, if you will. So just as a recap, there are a total of 17 chapters. We've gotten through 10 of them so far. The big sort of snag right now is the chapter 11, which is a method 3 risk characterization review, which is under internal review. We have 3 chapters, one of the eco chapters and a couple other chapters that are about ready to go through internal review, as well as some appendices. Next page, or next slide, please. And then just as a sort of overview of where the eco stuff is, the general considerations for eco, that's the biggest of the 4 chapters here. This, I think, is about 60 pages right now. That's getting pretty close to being ready for internal review. And I think, as I mentioned on another slide, the chapter 17, the wetland environmental risk characterization, is also ready, and 16 is nearly ready. So we're making some progress. It's just slow going with everything else sort of getting in the sort of pushing this stuff to the side here and there. And that's, I should mention here also that the total page count roughly at this point, I think the method 3 chapter is around 70 pages, and the total eco page count is around 120, I think, somewhere like that. So that's sort of where we are at this point. And before I open up for questions, I know, I'm not sure who, but someone brought up the arsenic iris review. And that is, we're aware of that, that EPA had a new iris assessment earlier this year. It's something we're looking at, but it's, there are other priorities that are taking sort of the bandwidth of the tox program at the moment. So, and for the time being, the method 1 standards are based on the background in soil. So that doesn't seem like it's going to change dramatically, certainly not in the near future. So that's sort of where we are with arsenic. And I guess I would open up the floor for questions to the extent that we can take them at this point. And I should also say, if you have questions that you can't ask or don't want to ask now, you can always send me an email with your question as well. And I see Lisa Camp raising her hand.
I know, shocker, right? Hi, Greg. Can you just articulate, if you can, what you envision as a process for resolving the comments and hopefully collaborating with practitioners and other stakeholders to, finalize the guidance? Or just, if you could just elaborate a little on that, that would be great.
Sure. Well, I mean, well, thank you for the comments that we have received. I mean, as far as resolution, this is not going to go through a sort of a standard comment resolution process. At least that's not something I had foreseen when I started down this road. However, if there are things that are significant concerns, we certainly are willing to discuss them and talk about what those concerns are. I haven't sort of, as far as a formal process, I haven't thought of a specific route. Bear in mind, this is not something I've done before, and this particular guidance document has not been updated for quite some time. And I should say, sort of one of the observations that I've made is, with the comments that I've received, there's a lot of sort of crosstalk. By that I mean, a lot of people will make comments, this should be more prescriptive, and then roughly the same number of people will say it's too prescriptive. That sort of thing, where it's like, well, I'm not saying it's right in the middle, but yeah, unless I have a real, unless I get or unless we get comments that are substantively changing and improving the guidance, I'm not sure how significant we are to move from what the drafts are. I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but that's sort of my thinking of it at this point.
Yeah, I guess I was just more wondering, like for vapor intrusion guidance, for the previous risk assessment guidance, there were meetings and dialogue. And I think practitioners who are implementing and seeing sort of what works in, based on how the MCP, sort of paradigm works and, the sequential nature and sometimes iterative nature of things with investigations and risk assessments, et cetera. I think it was a very productive approach. So I just, I would just say that I'm not saying endless meetings, but I think even just, a couple meetings with people who are risk practitioners dealing with the MCP and sites and implementation could be a very productive thing to do.
Absolutely. So Lisa, this is Millie Garcia. I'm taking that into advisement, and we had a good, for example, outcome with regards to coal tars. If you recall, LSBA requested a meeting with the DEP leadership, and we sat down and we worked out some differences. So I'm open for the possibilities, and particularly in areas that might be thorny scientific issues, and we need others to weigh in and comment. Because maybe understanding the data set leads us to a different outcome. So again, we are open, committed to figuring out what are some salient points that warrant coordination, and happy to do that. And just so you know, just to close the loop on this one, on the vapor intrusion, as you know, that's a very old document. I'm sure that we will have substantive comment. So therefore, we will certainly entertain that. But then there's some other documents that are policy documents that really, truly, all it is just changing out citations that change with the passage of time with the new MCP regs that were recently promulgated. So those may have less of a robust sort of open forum, rather taking comments. So I hope this satisfies you, and I know that I'm always available to check in with you. We have one last question from the advisory committee table, and then we are honored to have Commissioner Heupel with us to give some remarks. So do we also have?
We have one person online.
Okay, so let's do the online, and then we'll go back. Commissioner, do you have a few more minutes? Thank you.
Were there any other questions?
Yes, if that's all right.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Most of all, thank you. This is terrific. This is my first time being able to come because you've done it hybrid, and I'm very grateful. I'm sorry not to be there in person. Greg, you caused me to ask a question. I represent a lot of marinas and boatyards, and I'd like to ask you to just say a little bit more about the aquatic environmental risk calculation, especially in relationship to what we're hoping is happening right now, and maybe Bonnie knows, or Commissioner knows more. The Army Corps is developing a new CAD cell, and they've just put it out for public comment. And so we desperately need these CAD cells in the water. So I'm very interested in hearing more, anything about the aquatic environmental risk assessment. And thank you so very much, all of you.
Thank you for the question. Well, I mean, given the time, I don't know that I can go into sort of the specifics of the aquatic environmental assessment. And really, I should have Tom Angus, who is authoring that session. If it's an interest, I can have him reach out to you to give you some more details.
Thank you. That would be fine. I don't want to take everybody else's time, especially with the commissioner.
Okay.
Much more interesting than I am. She's terrific.
I'll circle back to you, Jamie.
Thank you, Greg.
And I'll leave it at that. I also just want to say, before we leave this topic, responding a bit further to Lisa, and I think LSPs in general, I have no interest, and I don't think the ORS has an interest to write a guidance that's not implementable. So, I'm on board with trying to have conversations to resolve anything that doesn't make any sense, because you guys are where the rubber meets the road, essentially. So just wanted to say that in closing, and pass it on to our next
Thank you, Greg. One last question, and then we are delighted to have Commissioner Heibel with us this morning. Thank you, Susan.
Thanks, Millie. Susan Chapnick, this is in wearing my hat in the public interest. I work for many community groups and they're concerned about certain emerging contaminants, so I'm going to go off the risk characterization guidance and just hope that ORS has on their radar certain emerging contaminants, including 6-ppd-quinone, which is an oxidated form of 6-ppd, which is a compound that's added to all tires, and it comes off of tire wear particles on roadways, as well as tire crumb rubber, commonly used in artificial turf fields. And the other concern from the community that I've been hearing a lot in general is microplastics. So I just want to make sure that's on the radar for ORS. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Yes, we're aware of the concerns with 6-ppd quinone and aware that it's a very aquatic, has a high aquatic toxicity. And yes, we are tracking the microplastics literature pretty closely. And the trick there is, I think, given the breadth of the impact and the number of sort of how to put it, potential exposures, I guess, is one way to frame it. And it's a moving, much like PFAS, it's a large moving target. So yes, we're aware of them, but I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. More to come. At this time, we'd like to pivot to the best part of this meeting, which is the Appreciation Awards. And I am so delighted to have Commissioner Bonnie Heibel join and take time out of her really busy schedule. And also introducing Emma Conway, Lauren Mareschi, and I'm sure, Commissioner, you will be doing that. So thank you. It's an honor to have you. And we're here honoring Larry Feldman and Ms. Wendy Rundle. With that, Commissioner, thank you.
Thank you. I may migrate over and steal part of David's podium if that's not going to cause tech issues. Always a good sign when you see the AV person with a giant bottle of ibuprofen. So thank you all for gathering here today, and I know we have some folks online as well. I'm delighted to be here with you to honor two real lions of the practice and of the profession. We are delighted to present service awards to two very deserving professionals in the environmental field, Wendy Rundle, for all of her accomplishments and dedication as Executive Director of the Licensed Site Professionals Association for the last 15 years, and Larry Feldman, former LSP, for his significant accomplishments and dedication as a member of the MassDEP Waste Site Cleanup Advisory Committee. Before we present the certificates, I'd like to provide just a few remarks about each honoree. I've done my homework, so I know more about you than maybe you think I know. Since 2010, Wendy has really not only met but exceeded the needs of the LSP Association. With Wendy at the helm, the LSPA has grown to over 800 LSPs and other consultant members who work with a diverse range of clients to remediate contaminated sites that can be restored and productive once again. Wendy's leadership is one of the reasons why LSPs have successfully managed more than 40,000 contaminated properties since the inception of the 21E privatized program in Massachusetts. I will say, going off piece here a little bit, that even now we hear from the governor, lieutenant governor, as recently as last week, using this program as a model, wondering how it can be expanded and used in other areas. So the success of this program is widely known and really well recognized. Wendy has been a collaborative and true partner to MassDEP, always providing sound feedback on BWSC policies and practices and presenting the association's positions with clarity. Wendy's contributions during her 15-year tenure as executive director are too many to name, but we'll go through a few just to give you a sense for all of the areas that she's really improved the practice and improved membership engagement. Wendy led the charge to develop programming and online resources to help LSPs stay informed about best practices and regulatory updates, including focused content for emerging professionals and sole practitioners.
Wendy has worked with the legislature to testify on key bills of interest to the practice. She's worked with DEP on updates to the MCP, our LNAPL guidance, and other key efforts. Wendy also introduced the 30 for 30 grant program in 2023, now called the Environmental Justice Grant Program, to commemorate the LSPA's 30th anniversary, supporting environmental and natural resource projects in environmental justice communities. Wendy has set the LSPA up for success now and into the future through strategic planning, hiring, and fostering strong relationships with the board, committees, and members alike. I know that BWSC, especially Millie, and all of us are really appreciative of the outstanding dedication and support that Wendy has provided over the years. So thank you for your partnership, and please join me up here to present the certificate. Thank you.
That's the reflex. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Of course. Big shoes to fill.
And don't go away, Wendy.
Just yet. Oh my goodness.
On behalf of the Bureau of Wayside Cleanup, well, personally, you and I go back many years, even collaborating on the board. And faithful supporter, always present, with very smart, important comments to ensure that there's transparency above all. You're a woman of integrity and a friend. And I wish you a wonderful, wonderful journey. We will miss you, and we also welcome Marielle.
Thank you. That's so lovely.
With that, Wendy Rundle, LSPA, 15 amazing years. Congrats, MassDEP, Bureau of Wayside Cleanup.
Take the tea. Sure, absolutely. Thank you. I can't believe that this is the second surprise I've had in 2 weeks. Like, I don't think of myself as naive and gullible, but I guess I am a little bit because my colleagues and you all managed to pull this off without not even suspecting. So I've said this before. It's just been such a pleasure for me to be part of this program. I think it's really amazing. I know I'm a big cheerleader. I know you all are too. It's been so much fun and so satisfying to work with MassDEP and the licensing board, and of course all the folks at the LSPA. I feel proud to have been invited into this group, not as an engineer or geologist, but as an environmental planner. I've loved the intersection of technology and advocacy and politics and negotiations and all the stuff behind the scenes. That's made it really fascinating. So thank you all so much. It's been wonderful. And I get to be honored with Larry Feldman.
Thank you, Wendy, and congratulations. The LSPA is in very good stead.
The pictures are always best. I know, right? Thanks.
Wow.
I'm guessing these are from the Paul Locke archives. Turning to Larry. Larry Feldman is a PhD and longtime member of MassDEP's Wayside Cleanup Advisory Committee. Larry has long held the spirit of public service. In the 1970s, Larry worked at the Massachusetts Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, working on water policy and reviewing projects subject to NEPA. Larry joined GZA in 1979 as a senior staff hydrologist and rose to senior principal, providing leadership and technical expertise in the assessment and cleanup of contaminated sites. Larry retired from GZA in March of last year after 45 years at the firm. When Chapter 21E went into effect in 1988, Larry gained the unofficial founding member title of the Wayside Cleanup Advisory Program by being one of the original commentators and contributors. Larry was part of the 21E study committee, leading to the privatization of the cleanup program that also resulted in the creation of the LSP program. Larry was later appointed to MassDEP's Hazardous Waste Site Cleanup Advisory Committee in 1992. He was involved in the development of the significantly revised MCP, which went into effect in 1993. There's also the professor in Larry's DNA. as evidenced by his lifetime lecturing passion, including serving as an instructor in the geology department of Salem State College and continuing to be on the lecture circuit 40 years later. In the words of his GZ mentee, David Leone, if there were a Mount Rushmore of environmental practitioners, Larry would be on it. So today I joined BWSC, Millie, many of our MassDEP team who are in the room today, and just being really grateful for your service and dedication to the 2020 program and to the practice. So thank you, Larry, and please join me up here to accept your certificate. Sorry, I'm coming in at the tail end here. Yep. Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to pull forward, Larry? We also want to give you, I hope, a very appropriate gift, because out on the golf course, there's no bad MCP renderings or opinions, right? Just every site is a permanent solution with no conditions. So, for you, I cannot be more honored than being here in this space with Commissioner Larry and a dear trusted friend all the way back to the way back. You are a luminary for me and a mentor. And I just want to thank you so much for putting in so much energy, effort, and love into the program that we have today. So it really means a lot that you're even out here, even as you've stepped down from the Wayside Legal Advisory Committee, but always very thoughtful. And that's the golf course calling. It's tea time for you. Someone trying to say a few words.
My wife calling from Puerto Rico.
Well, we won't tell her you silenced her call.
Thanks, no, I was looking for the club that went with us, but it's been a hoot. I had lunch yesterday with Mr. Locke and with Callahan and Deb and Wes, who are also very involved in setting this program up. It actually goes back to 83. I did my first talk in 83, thanks to Bill Pope, who dragged me into, for those who remember Bill Pope, who dragged me into doing a presentation on this. So it's been a hoot, it's been a lot of fun, and thank you very much.
Congratulations, Wendy, Larry, thank you again. I will turn it back to Millie and leave you to the rest of your meeting and lunch. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. We appreciate it. We look forward to having you come back to this forum. Thank you, Emma and Lauren, for your support as well. Have fun at the Envirothon. Wonderful. Okay, so we appreciate your staying a little bit beyond the 11:30 hour, not 4:30, 11:30. But if you need to leave, we totally understand. And this has been an adventure, as Shannon stated, with today's sort of first since COVID times meeting, so we'll get into perfection next time. With that, I'd like to introduce John Ziegler, the Bureau of Wayside Cleanup's PFAS coordinator, who will speak to what's up with PFAS in the BWSC world, but also include your water resources topic, a topic that was requested by Jessica Cahiga-Smith, longtime bond and advisory committee member. She wanted to understand the intersection between both programs as it pertains to site discovery. So with that, John's going to do a lot more, but he will focus a little bit on that. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Millie, and good morning, everyone. Tough to follow the appreciation awards, so I will do my best. I'll just snap this in here on my name. All right. So yes, I'm John Ziegler. I'm the PFAS statewide PFAS coordinator, new position created last year. I work in the policy and program development division under the direction of Ken Mara, who you heard from earlier. Ken mentioned some of the guidance documents we're working on, we continue to work on. I'm just going to touch on one little subject area on PFAS, and it's the work that we're doing regarding water supplies, both public water supplies and private water supplies. I do want to say my contact information is on the slide here. The PFAS Q&A hasn't been finalized. Happy to receive questions to add to that document. So if you would, send me an email, give me a call, happy to include more in that. Okay, so I want to talk both about the work that we're doing in private wells and public water systems. There's a lot of similarities, but there's some pretty significant differences. As I'm sure all of you know, MassDEP does not regulate private wells. They are regulated by the local boards of health. However, if there is a notification requirement under the MCP, we do regulate the contamination that is present in that well. We do not require sampling of private wells. We are aware of some local bylaws, town bylaws that are requiring PFAS sampling, either for new construction or ownership transfers. The sampling that homeowners do may require notification to DEP. And we're trying to get that word out, and we're asking for a little help there. There is some confusion, but if the homeowner does have a result greater than or equal to 20 parts per trillion for the PFAS 6 compounds, that is reportable under the MCP. We do take those reports, and it helps us in our source discovery efforts primarily. Our objective with those notifications is essentially you're treating those sites similar to a DPS site. We're saying, look, we think the source is from somewhere else. That's where we're starting our investigation. I mean, obviously, if there is compelling evidence that the source is that property, then they may be subject to additional requirements. But that's how we're treating those. And then, of course, if things are greater than imminent hazard standards, we're able to step in and help with that. Just a final point on private wells, the MCL does not technically apply to private wells, but there is an MCP GW1 standard that does apply. Public water systems, these are regulated by MassDEP, in particular Bureau of Water Resources Drinking Water Program. And this is just a refresher for folks. There's 3 types of public water systems. There's the community system. You can think of a large municipal system. There's the non-transient, non-community, which is a water source that's serving, say, a workplace. And then there's the transient non-community, which is water sources serving like a restaurant or a park, campground, that sort of thing. Drinking water program does require PFAS sampling for those public water systems. They are exempt from MCP notification if conducted by the public water system. And the drinking water program helps and gets involved with treatment requirements for those systems. Okay, so if you've heard me talk in the last year, a lot of this is repetitive. I'm just going to go through it quickly. We are dependent on folks providing notification to us for PFAS detected in private wells. Some of it we got from a joint program that was conducted with UMass, where we sampled over 1,600 wells, and all those results were reported to DEP. That took the form of notification for us, the receipt of those data. Some we've received from homeowners themselves. Others, boards of health have been assisting homeowners in sampling. And again, we've tried to get the word out to the boards of health. Please let the homeowners know they may be subject to reporting at concentrations equal to or greater than 20. I should have also had another bullet up here. Of course, there's disposal site work that all of the LSPs are doing that also lead to some notifications. And then there's the 2-hour and then the 72-hour. We do have a landfill initiative going on that's being done by Bureau of Air and Waste. They are looking at, I think, 60 to 70 landfills throughout the state with potential to have releases of PFAS. The notification comes into play where a monitoring point is within 500 feet of a private well, greater than or equal to 20. For the private wells, our primary focus is on mitigating imminent hazards. So at or greater than 90, DEP will step in where we don't have an RP or a PRP, we haven't identified one, or they're unable to do it or unwilling to do it, DEP will step in. Our approach has been to put in lead lag, granular activated carbon POET systems. There's a picture of one here, very small footprint. We'll operate those generally for 2 years and then turn those over to the homeowner. We also will do sampling with the objective of identifying other imminent hazards in the area. It's not a source discovery effort in that it's simply to look for, do we have imminent hazards in other private wells nearby? So we will do that. To date, we've installed about 60 POET systems, and we're continuing to provide bottled water at 32 sites that are either looking to connect to a public water connection or awaiting a POET system. Another priority, and I should mention all this work is done in the regional offices. Another priority is our source discovery efforts. We will start with doing a desktop survey. What releases have occurred in the area? Has there been AFFF applied? Are they adjacent to a fire training area, a manufacturing site that may be a potential source of PFAS? It'll start with that. We may issue requests for information to potential source properties, and it may include sampling as well, but not always. Where we're successful in identifying the source, certainly we will follow up and we'll issue a notice of responsibility to the source property. Public water systems, a little bit different. Notification, as I mentioned, there's the MCP exemption for notification. However, we work closely with our colleagues on all the other programs on all things PFAS, and we certainly work closely with our colleagues in the drinking water program. When they have a sampling result that is greater than the Massachusetts MCL of 20, they'll notify BWSC staff, and although the drinking water program will assist the public water system with treatment and next steps, we'll take that information and conduct source discovery, much the same as we do for private well impacts. And just to the right is shown a story map that the drinking water program has put together. And in that story map, you can see all the public water systems that have detected PFAS in their raw water greater than the MCL. And if you click on each individual system, it's going to tell you what treatment and where they are in the process. There's also information on DEP loans that have been provided and grants as well. So there's a lot of information, and I would refer you to that story map. And then I just want to finish up a little bit with some statistics. On the private well side, we estimate 200,000 private wells in the state. From the study that we did alongside UMass, it was determined that 6% of the private wells in that study were greater than the 20 PPT drinking water standard, and about 1% of those wells exceeded the current imminent hazard standard of 90. So obviously, if more people sample, we're going to have a lot more private wells to investigate that will, inform our source discovery efforts. On the public water systems, there's about 1,400 public water systems that are required to test for PFAS. Of those, we're up to 177 that have detected PFAS above the Massachusetts MCL, so that's about 12% of the sites. You can find all the results on the EEA data portal. You can search on PFAS or PFAS-6, and that will return all the results. There's many thousands of results that you can go through. To the right's just a graphic showing just a breakdown by region by the different type of public water system where we've had impacts greater than 20. It's pretty obvious Central is kind of leading the way with the most impacts, and Western has the fewest. And then just quickly on the loans, there's been 53 projects where DEP has offered 0% interest loans in conjunction with the Clean Water Trust. That's totaling just over $530 million, and then there's been another 74 grants given to towns totaling just over $45 million to address PFAS issues. All of that is managed through the drinking water program. And then I just want to just finish up just with the MCP notifications. We're up to 198 MCP notifications. A big piece of the pie chart shown to the right is we have unknown sources in about a third of those sites. And so that represents a pretty significant change. So that's the update I have. Happy to take a question or two. I know we're running a little short on time.
Two questions. Why is the 2025, even though we're only a third of the way through the year, is pretty low? We expect it to, is there some reason for that, do you think?
I expect it to increase, and I maybe should have updated this. This is through April. I expect it to creep up a little. I'm not sure why that is. I mean, I've not heard of any, slowdown in investigation. So not sure why that is.
The other question was on the map that showed the PFAS sites. There's a legend said they were non-consecutive. I guess I'm not sure what that means in that context. Back 2 slides.
Go back here. This one here?
The 14, 17 active non-consecutive suppliers.
Consecutive suppliers, it's a drinking water program thing where one water system provides, I believe this is the way, water to another. So non-consecutive, so you could have sampling in both, but it's really only one water supply. So it's their way of kind of filtering out that subsequent transfer of water.
Strange terminology.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Or a community that sells water to another community, but the source comes from the same.
I know this could take us off, but I'm just curious. I'm sure you're monitoring what's going on at the federal government with the PFAS rollback and all that. Are you expecting more? Do you have any information or additional information that you can share? Are you kind of watching and waiting like everyone else?
So that's the reason why I just kind of wanted to at least tell you, and both John and I and Ken Mara, Ken and I participated in the Commissioner's PFAS monthly call. And we're going to be seeing a lot of robust discussion that I just want to get out of school here. The Commissioner's really the lead in coordination with obviously all of the individuals. We call it our PFAS interagency document that was published a few years back, and we still are working with all those partners. But we've seen the dramatic drop in the associated attributable to toxicity values, et cetera, and then the approaches to IH, hazard indices. So we're making those decisions, I think soon. We're working together with the Bureau of Water Resources, the Drinking Water Program, and our posture has been that we let the Bureau of Water Resources Drinking Water Program at least take the first stab at what it's going to look like, and then we kind of join in. Otherwise, we coordinate and then we lead the way, akin to what we did in 2019 with our MCP numbers, and then the MCLO numbers were codified a year later. But the point being is that whatever it is, it's going to be the same number to ensure that we're not setting anybody to fail, both from a communications plan and also scientific, just protectiveness for all. So anything else that you can share, or I think we're just basically just waiting to sit at the table and sort of do our job. As John described, and in hazards, that's really been a point that the Commissioner has sort of given to us to provide all that we need to do, whether it's sensitivity analysis or what does this mean, because again, we have the statutory obligation to address, eliminate, mitigate hazards, even hazards associated with any constituent concern that triggers that condition. So
John is working hard to crystal ball and understand, never mind the technology, are we gonna be there to be responsive to abating that risk? In addition to also how much is it gonna cost, and when you do the numbers based on how many private wells we have, what does that final figure equate to? So we will have a lot to talk about in the advisory committee, and obviously members of the public and associations, we really will need your input, and we will be coming back to you as a promise.
All right, any other questions, or we should move on to the next?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, I'll make this short and sweet. So, engineer barriers and financial assurance mechanisms. We just wanted to sort of bring this topic back to the table. Certainly it's a topic that I'm looking for advisory committee member feedback, not necessarily now. We'll find ways to maybe just download and have more dialogue starting in FY26 with that list of policies. So we definitely, and again, to Lisa Camp's point, we definitely want to maintain that transparency. That's why we have the advisory committee. So we want to put you all to work. On this one, BWSC is really looking to clarify and update the BWSC guidance on the use, design, construction, monitoring of EVs. Our last public comment, based on what John Fitzgerald tells me, was back in November 2002. So I'm very motivated to clean out all our repertoire of things that need to be brought to this century here. So we'll do that. But I want to say, notwithstanding that, a lot of work, so not to dismiss all the great work, a lot of work happened to get it to the point that maybe we can all say, okay, just put a bow on and it's ready. So there was a lot of really good commentary provided by everybody internally and externally. So again, clarify, update, and finalize. Promote correct and consistent application. That's a really important point that we want to underscore today, and Brian Roden is going to be giving us some examples as to why. Application of relevant regulatory requirements and the provisions. Clarify and centralize the financial assurance mechanisms. So we know that they exist for other regulated programs, objects in other programs like landfills, hazardous waste, things like that. We also have a component, we want to make sure we get it right. Finally, we want to bring additional information and some proposals actually in the month of August when we get together again, so that we can kind of decide, does this make sense, we're going to move forward, what should interest rates or things like that look like. So this is on the fan. So with that, I'd like to invite Brian Roden to the podium, where he will talk about why we're so motivated to move on with this one.
All right, thanks, Millie. So, those of you I don't know, I'm Brian Roden, the Audit Enforcement Coordinator for Wayside Cleanup here in Boston, working with the Policy Program Division Group. So, first off, I just wanted to kind of talk about what engineering barriers are. I guess we'll start with the definition. Straight out of the MCP, there you go. Engineering barrier means a permanent cap with or without a liner that is designed, constructed, and maintained in accordance with the requirements of it. And this is the part that's important, that's why it's bold. 310 CMR 40.0998, and it works with 310 CMR 40.000. So the take-home point here is the definition of an engineering barrier. It's not just a regular cap or cover material, and I think sometimes as we got rid of the RAO A4 class, there was some confusion, and I'll go through the forms and when and where to check the box that you have an engineering barrier. So in the definition is the actual criteria in the MCP, and we'll go through that too quickly. So before we get to that, just a couple things that need to happen before you implement an engineering barrier at your site. So you need to go through the phase 3 process. So these are two regs in that phase 3 section, 40.08594, which again, you need to go through the phase 3 process, ensure that there's no other feasible alternatives as opposed to the engineering barrier. Then in addition to that, you need to do evaluation of feasibility of not only reaching no significant risk without that engineering barrier, but bringing those concentrations down below the method 3 ceiling limits. You guys can count how many times I said UCLs as opposed to ceiling limits. I'm gonna try to do my best. But yes, you need to evaluate bringing that down below the concentrations below method 3 ceiling limits. You know, and looking at the cost benefit analysis of bringing that contamination down before implementing that engineered barrier. All right, there's a lot of words. I'm not going to read this on the slide, but you know, when is the actual engineered barrier required? And so what you're doing is you're evaluating risk in terms of public welfare and the environment. And so in both of those instances, and public welfare would be 40.994, as you see on the screen there, and the environment 40.995. You need to compare to the method 3 ceiling limits. And if you exceed those method 3 ceiling limits, you have soil concentrations that exceed the method 3 ceiling limits, you can still achieve a condition of no significant risk for both public welfare and the environment with the application of 3 different options here. And then C being the option that you locate that soil beneath an engineered barrier. Again, that we point out that the requirements there of 40.0998, so that will be the conditions of the engineered barrier. So what this slide here demonstrates exactly what 40.0998 says. So you know, this is not just your typical cover material, just generic cap. It's a more rigorous process. So your engineered barrier needs to prevent direct contact to contaminated material, control vapors, need to prevent erosion, needs to be comprised of materials resistant to degradation, and it needs to be consistent with technical standards of REC or subpart N or another here, 40 CFR 264-300, and then our hazardous regs 310 CMR 3600. It also needs to include a defined layer that visually identifies where the barrier is. And then this is a big one here too that needs to be appropriately monitored, maintained, and include a ban. And so that's you know, kind of what started this conversation, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And an engineered barrier, this one is also true too, so it shall not include existing buildings or structure or cover materials, so unless it's designed and constructed to serve as an engineered barrier, basically what I just reviewed there. So if you have just a regular building that already exists that can't be used as an engineered barrier unless you go through the steps of 40.998, so those specific criteria. All right, so again, you know, Millie was trying to say when we were looking at our universe of VMs and engineered barriers and what's out there. Obviously in 2014, there was a change from the REO nomenclature to permanent temporary solutions. There was no more class A4 REOs. So a site that's closed out with a permanent solution with an engineered barrier would be considered a permanent solution with conditions because it has an AUL. So one way we were looking to find these engineered barrier sites was the BWSC 104 form, and you can see it here. This is section C, which kind of describes what you have done at the site. There's a box for engineered barriers. So we went through the exercise and said, oh, you know, let's get all the sites that have checked off engineered barrier. Review of those revealed kind of what we thought, is that some of them are not really engineered barriers. People have implemented some type of cap or cover material and they check the box for engineered barrier. And it's just not the MCP definition of what a capital E engineered barrier is. So I just have 2 examples here. So this is the first example, and this permanent solution, they conducted the method 1 risk characterization. They had no OHM in soil above the method 3 ceiling limits, and they also didn't have soil that exceeded method 1 S3 standards. They came to the conclusion that no significant risk didn't exist because they had led above method 1 standards. They implemented an AUL to limit residential use and maintain a protective cover. And then this last statement is out of their permanent solution. The engineered barrier consists of pre-existing asphalt pavement, pre-existing concrete pavement, and a concrete foundation and lower floor of the existing site building, plus newly installed asphalt to permanently cover former unpaved areas outside the engineered area. What do we think? Is this an engineered barrier?
No.
You got it. So this is not an engineered barrier. So they checked up the box as engineered barrier. Again, those forms, we like to use those forms, you guys probably looking quickly too. It's a nice way to quickly look at a site, maybe get a flavor of what they've done at the site. We might look at this one and say, oh, it's an engineered barrier. Oh, it doesn't have a FAM. And finally, we go down, oh, it's not really an engineered barrier. Therefore, it does not require a FAM. Example 2 here. So this site had concentrations of lead detected in soil above the method 3 CNO limits. There's an AO filed for the RTN and eliminated future use of resident school daycare, pretty typical. It required the engineered barrier to be maintained in accordance with the engineered barrier post-construction monitoring and maintenance plan. And then in the AUL, it also requires a financial assurance mechanism for long-term monitoring and maintenance of the engineered barrier. Do we think this one really is an engineered barrier? This one, it is an engineered barrier. I didn't really talk about the details of what it is, but it's too long to fill the slide. But so that one was an actual engineered barrier. It actually does have a FAM. That FAM went through a process with Eric Colley and his group, and it's Eric.
He's on the phone.
He's on the phone. Okay, so I guess I'll just pause there quickly. Like Millie said, we are going to go through and kind of look at if there's ways that we can clarify the forms to help get the information we're looking for in the forms in terms of you folks, the LSPs, checking off what an engineered barrier is, and so we both are understanding that your site has an engineered barrier, where we know it has one and we're looking for one. That's one of our goals here, is to clarify those transmittal forms and then also update the guidance as I said. So I'll pause for any questions there before I turn it over. Yep.
So that was perfect, Brian. I thank you. And Brian is, as always, all things MCP. Thank God. Okay, so we're going to turn it over to Eric Foley. I believe he's on the phone. Do you mind advancing so I don't break it?
Thank you, Millie. Could I see the slides, please? Thank you. So, good morning. I'm Eric Foley. I'm the financial assurance specialist with the Bureau of Administrative Services. With me today, remotely, is Erica Judd. She's the financial assurance analyst with the Bureau of Administrative Services. Together, we administer financial assurance for solid waste facilities, decommissioning of solar arrays at solid waste facilities, RCRA hazardous waste treatment, storage, and disposal facilities, and we do administer some Bureau of Waste Site cleanup FAMs for Bureau of Waste Site cleanup sites. Again, I'm Eric Foley, and my contact information is on the slide, and Erica Judd is the financial assurance analyst, and her information is on the slide as well. And Bureau of Administrative Services is assisting the Bureau of Waste Site cleanup and looking at various Bureau of Waste Site cleanup sites. And if they do require a FAM, we want to make sure that the FAM is in conformance with the applicable regulatory requirements. So in any way that Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup wants to utilize our services, we're here to assist them. And, it's a great collaborative effort so far. Is there one more slide? So as I was saying, the goals are to assist Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup with the reviews of sites with an engineered barrier which require a FAM. Provide guidance on the establishment of Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup FAMs. Review Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup FAMs to ensure compliance with applicable regulations. Bureau of Administrative Services wants to provide the ongoing administration of Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup FAMs. We administer some, but we requested that Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup transfer their portfolio of the FAMs that they review under their custody and have us to continue to provide those administrative services. And we're looking forward to come back in the near future to provide more feedback at a future Bureau Wayside Cleanup AC meeting. You know, this advisory council meeting, this is the first I've attended. It's been extremely informative, and I'm sure Erica and I have gotten quite a bit more educated on PFAS and some of the real hot topics for Bureau Wayside Cleanup. So thank you very much for, inviting us to your advisory committee meeting. Thank you, Millie.
Thank you, Eric and Erica. And I also want to point out that Tom Jackum is here with us, if you don't mind standing up for a minute. He is the Office of General Counsel lawyer who's tasked to helping us with the FAM review and all that. So thank you, Tom, for attending this meeting.
And really quick question?
Questions, please.
Yeah?
Of course.
Thanks, Billy. Yeah, we'll grab something, so thanks. Michelle O'Brien. So, hi, Eric. I know the solid waste regulations have very specific requirements for what constitutes a FAM, and I'm just not familiar with if there are such provisions in the MCP for financial assurance mechanism associated with an engineered barrier. Is that something that's in there that I don't know about, or something that you're looking to have?
They're cross-referenced. So the MCP doesn't have a lot of text in it, but when you read it, just try to figure out how do I set up a FAM, it ends up cross-referencing. It ends up cross-referencing you to those other regulations in other programs that have more detailed requirements. We always have to fuss a little bit with the forms to make it fit the MCP, because the forms, as they're laid out for other programs, assume that you're working under those other programs. But I think the form of FAM itself ends up being very, very close to what you see in other programs.
So you're looking for similar types of mechanisms?
Yeah, the same,
bonds,
it's
whatever.
it's the letter of credit, all bond, but the same sort of menagerie of things to choose from.
Nice word, Luke.
Okay.
Okay, so again, a lot more to report back in August. We have the universe of the mishmash of real EVs, capital lowercase EVs and caps, and we want to deconvolute it and definitely potentially find a strategy to reach out to either property owner and or LSP to sort of alert, so we can just continue to work on accuracy and ensure that we do our part to update anything that will be helpful to the licensed ag professionals that are rendering opinions that check off the box as having one, maybe they don't. So we want to make sure that we have accuracy above all. So I think appreciation awards, again, congratulations, Wendy, Larry. And okay, so this brings us to the conclusion of this meeting. Thank you so much for being so patient. A little rusty here. Obviously, we need another dress rehearsal. But I do appreciate your coming here. It really means a lot. So for sure, all the members and Linda and Joe and Michelle, and these glasses, Susan and Jeff, for sure. Thank you so very much for spending time with us today. We'll give you plenty of notice for the next meeting. Perhaps we can do this 4 times a year in person. We can get more speakers from the department and really prepare a program that's helpful to you and your clients, and obviously for us advising DEP. So with that, our next meeting will be on August 21st, 2025, 9:30, and maybe we extend it to 12. But anyway, so we also have the quote coffee hours that Paul Locke started during COVID times. So our office hours meeting is actually going to be on 6/26 because we have the Juneteenth holiday on the 19th. We're going to roll it a little bit afterwards. But again, thank you. And maybe this is just end of fiscal year kind of celebration in December. That's all I can say. But again, on behalf of the entire Bureau of Wayside Cleanup, we thank you for always supporting us. And see you soon.